Imagine walking into a room where two people are having a conversation. One person is doing almost all the talking, the other barely says anything, yet somehow, when the conversation ends, the quiet person is the one everyone remembers, the one people trust, the one who seems to have the most authority. Strange, isn't it? Most people believe influence comes from speaking more, but some of the most persuasive people in the world have discovered something else. Influence often comes from understanding what happens between words. And once you see it, you'll start noticing it everywhere. In business meetings, negotiations, interviews, relationships, even ordinary conversations. Because every interaction contains an invisible layer most people never notice. A layer where perception is shaped, trust is built, and decisions are quietly influenced. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on that hidden layer. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the smartest communicators often say less, listen more, and somehow leave the strongest impression. Chapter 1, The Silence That Changes Everything. Several years ago, a negotiation trainer asked a room full of executives a simple question: what is the most powerful word in a conversation? The room immediately filled with answers. Confidence, trust, why, because, value, influence. The trainer listened patiently, then he smiled and shook his head. Wrong. The room went silent. And that was exactly his point. The most powerful tool wasn't a word. It was the silence that had just filled the room. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. The moment a conversation becomes quiet, they rush to fill the gap. They explain more, defend themselves, reveal information they never intended to share. But highly skilled communicators understand something different. Silence creates psychological gravity. A well-timed pause forces people to think, to anticipate, to question their own assumptions. The human brain hates unfinished patterns. When a speaker pauses at the right moment, the listener's mind automatically leans forward searching for completion. And suddenly, the person saying less gains more attention than the person saying more. This isn't magic, it's psychology. And once you understand it, you'll begin noticing how often powerful people use deliberate silence to control the rhythm of a conversation. But silence is only the beginning, because words themselves can reshape reality, not by changing facts, but by changing perception. Chapter 2, The Frame That Changes Reality. Imagine two executives standing in front of the same boardroom. Both are presenting the exact same proposal. The first says, "This decision carries a significant risk." The room immediately becomes cautious. Questions start appearing. Doubts begin forming. Now imagine the second executive presenting the exact same facts. Only this time, he says, "This decision presents a significant opportunity." Suddenly, the energy changes. The room becomes curious, interested, optimistic. Nothing changed. The numbers remained identical. The facts remained identical. Only the frame changed. Yet the outcome became completely different. Why? Because human beings don't respond to reality. They respond to their perception of reality. And perception is shaped by framing. Most people believe communication is about transferring information. Smart communicators understand it's about shaping interpretation. Every headline, every advertisement, every political speech, every negotiation, every sales pitch, every conversation, uses framing, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unconsciously. The moment you understand this, you begin seeing it everywhere. You notice how fear is framed, how confidence is framed, how opportunities are framed, how people frame themselves, and suddenly communication starts looking less like a conversation, and more like architecture. Because words don't just describe reality, they build it. But if framing controls perception, what reveals the truth beneath perception? For that, you need a completely different skill, one that most people never develop: the ability to hear what isn't being said. Chapter 3, The People Who See More Than They Hear. Several years ago, an investigator was interviewing a suspect. The suspect answered every question perfectly. The story was logical, consistent, detailed. On the surface, everything seemed believable. But the investigator noticed something strange. Every time the suspect mentioned a particular event, his breathing changed. Slightly, almost imperceptibly. His voice became tighter. His answers became faster. Nothing dramatic. Just small signals. Signals most people would never notice. Hours later, the investigator discovered those signals pointed directly toward the truth. The words weren't revealing anything. The behavior was. This is where communication intelligence reaches an entirely different level. Because most people listen to words. Exceptional communicators listen to patterns. They notice pauses, changes in tone, micro-expressions. eye movement, energy shifts, body language, context, the signals hidden underneath language. And often those signals reveal more than the words themselves. Think about it. How many times has someone said, "I'm fine," when they clearly weren't? How did you know? Not because of the words. Because something underneath the words revealed the truth. Communication intelligence begins when you realize people are constantly communicating on multiple levels at once. The conscious level speaks. The subconscious level leaks information. And those who learn to observe both gain an extraordinary advantage. Because understanding creates influence. Not manipulation. Understanding. The deeper you understand another person's fears, motivations, and desires, the easier it becomes to communicate effectively. But observation alone isn't enough, because even the truth can lose its power if it's delivered the wrong way. And that brings us to one of the most underestimated forces in human psychology. Your voice. Chapter 4: The Voice People Trust. Imagine receiving 2 phone calls. In the first call, someone says, "Everything is under control," but their voice sounds nervous, uncertain, rushed. Immediately, something feels wrong. Now imagine hearing the exact same sentence from someone whose voice is calm, steady, measured, confident. The words are identical, yet the experience is completely different. Why? Because the human brain doesn't just listen to language, it listens to emotion, and emotion travels through the voice. Long before people evaluate your logic, they evaluate your delivery. Your tone influences trust. Your pacing influences attention. Your confidence influences credibility. In many situations, people respond to how something feels before they evaluate whether it's true. That's why some people can make ordinary ideas sound powerful, and others can make brilliant ideas sound forgettable. The difference isn't intelligence, it's delivery. Great communicators understand this. They regulate their pace, control their emphasis, choose their moments carefully. Not because they're performing, but because they understand something fundamental. A message is never received exactly as it is spoken. It is received through the emotional filter of the listener. And that filter is heavily influenced by your voice. But even deeper than tone, deeper than framing, deeper than pauses, lies another force shaping every conversation. A force so subtle most people never notice it. The hidden psychological weight of words themselves. Chapter 5: The Invisible Triggers Inside Language. Have you ever noticed how one word can instantly change your mood? How a simple phrase can make you defensive, excited, angry, hopeful, even before you fully thought about it? That's because words are never just words. Every word carries emotional associations, memories, experiences, meaning. Your subconscious mind is constantly interpreting signals hidden inside language, and it does this far faster than conscious thought. This is why 2 people can hear the same sentence and react completely differently. They're not responding to the information, they're responding to the associations attached to it. The subconscious is always listening, always evaluating, always predicting. Most people remain unaware of this process, but communication intelligence means becoming aware of the invisible forces shaping reactions. The moment you understand these triggers, conversations become easier to read. You begin anticipating responses before they happen. You recognize emotional patterns before they become visible, and suddenly communication feels less random. Because you can see the mechanisms operating beneath the surface. At this point, communication intelligence may sound complicated, but developing it is surprisingly simple. It begins with awareness. Chapter 6: Training the Mind to See the Invisible. Tomorrow, during your next conversation, try a small experiment. Speak less. Observe more. When a pause appears, don't rush to fill it. Watch what happens. When someone speaks, don't focus only on their words. Pay attention to their tone, their pacing, their expressions, their energy. Notice how different phrases create different reactions. Notice how your own voice changes the atmosphere of a conversation. At first, these patterns seem invisible. But with practice, something remarkable happens. Your mind starts detecting them automatically, the same way a musician hears notes others miss. Or a chess master sees patterns beginners never notice. Your subconscious begins recognizing communication dynamics in real time. And gradually, powerful communication stops being something you do, it becomes part of how you think. But perhaps the greatest benefit isn't influence, it's protection. Final chapter: the moment the game changes. Most people spend their lives being influenced without realizing it. A headline influences them, a confident voice influences them. A persuasive frame influences them. A carefully chosen phrase influences them. And they assume they're making completely independent decisions. Communication intelligence changes that, because once you understand how influence works, you begin noticing it. You stop reacting automatically. You start anticipating intentions. You become aware of the forces competing for your attention and shaping your perception. And awareness changes everything. You are no longer simply participating in conversations. You're understanding them. You're seeing the machinery behind them, the hidden psychology beneath the surface. And that is where true communication intelligence begins, not with speaking, but with seeing. Seeing what others miss. Hearing what others overlook. Understanding what others never notice. Because communication was never just about words. It was always about perception, timing, emotion, awareness. And those who master these forces gain something most people never realize exists. An invisible advantage. A quiet edge. One that transforms ordinary conversations into opportunities for understanding, influence, and insight. And over time, that edge turns you into something rare. A communicator who is aware, strategic, intentional, and impossible to ignore. Communication is strange. The people who seem the most powerful aren't always the ones speaking the loudest. They're often the ones who understand what everyone else misses. If this video changed the way you see conversations, share it with one person. Because once you notice these patterns, you start seeing them everywhere. And if you're ready to understand the hidden psychology behind human behavior, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.